jungle.
We're going to talk about the University of Montana and what we do to prevent climate change.
A little overview of our presentation. We'll talk about what ASUM is. Maddie and Brielle kind of touched on it earlier, but we'll explain it more in depth. A couple of these more specific services that within ASUM, and then we'll give some examples of what the University of Montana is doing to be more sustainable and help mitigate climate change.
These are resources that we think contribute to climate change on campus.
Okay, so ASUM stands for Associated Students of the University of Montana. It's basically our student government. I don't know if Kenta has a student government, but it's student-led and largely student-funded. So students will apply for positions, and they will hold these positions, and then within ASUM there are multiple services and programs offered. So for example, our school newspaper, the Kaiman, is run by students, part of ASUM. Our transportation service, we have a school bus called the U-Dash. That is also a part of, that's an ASUM service. We have a school radio that plays music for the whole city of Missoula, and that is also through the ASUM. The one that we'll be focusing mainly on is the sustainability aspect of ASUM. So there's a sustainability committee, and then there's also a sustainability coordinator on campus, two of which, Eva Roque is her name, and then Meredith Rebke is through ASUM. They kind of lead student projects. They're more of a Dr. Deng type position. Well, it's like your age, kind of they supervise students and they help like organize the services that the students then lead. And then I'll go into what CRELF is. So CRELF, the Kless Revolving Energy Loan Fund. There was a guy, Sonny Kless. Dad, you know Sonny?
I had him as a student.
2002, right?
Not in 2010, but he was there earlier than that.
Yeah. So he went to the University of Montana and he passed away in 2010. So after him, they made this committee. So at our school, we have a sustainability fee. So it's an optional fee that students can pay. It's $4 US. And this fee, this money that collects from all these students, it goes into this pot. And then the CRELF committee, they are a committee that kind of deals with this money, and they allot money to certain projects around campus that are sustainability initiatives. These projects are student proposed. So students will come to CRELF and propose a project that they think the university should do. And then CRELF committee will use this pool of money from the sustainability fee to provide loans or grants to these projects with the idea that the money will return in time by reducing energy, reducing waste, reducing water, things that will pay back over time. And then the selection there's a selection criteria, so not all projects are given money. Some projects more so than others, some are very expensive, retrofitting an entire building. Some are more simple, like longboard lockers by the rec center. So some are very not pricey and some are extremely expensive. So there's a committee that decides where the money will go. I'm actually on it.
This is our campus, the university. And the story we tell ourselves is that we want to continue living in a beautiful area. And so taking action on climate change is to protect an area so beautiful as this.
So you go back. This is what our campus looks like right now. Very cold, below 0 Celsius, well below 0 Celsius, snow, very, very cold. So coming here, this is very hot for us.
The first resource that we conserve is water. Around campus, we have water bottle fill stations. And so everybody on campus basically has one of these. And we reduce the use of these because this is made from fossil fuel plastic. And so the university encourages people to stop using plastic water bottles because we do not support.
So if you look around the room, you see lots of students have their water bottles with them today.
Usable. A lot of the toilets at the university only use probably about this much water sometimes to flush the toilet. It's good. The plants, the vegetation on campus is natural in some places, and so you don't have to water the plants. The nature takes care of that. And our sprinklers.
Recently, through Krauth, there was a project submitted to make the sprinklers automated. At our campus, a lot of times the plants and the grass are overwatered, and it's kind of a waste of water. So there's a new project that actually I think is happening this year that will automate this and reduce water.
So Tom and Casey, why would you be worried about water in a state like Montana?
In a state like Montana, we have water from the river, but it's not good tasting water and it's dangerous. And so we have an aquifer that sits below the university. It's a natural body of water from prehistoric time, and we are draining that aquifer. Like, your land here is subsiding because you're using water for agriculture. We are depleting ours as well. And so by using water efficiently, tying that into climate change, I'm not so sure.
Well, we're also a very dry state where we don't have a lot of water to begin with, and so we have to conserve it. And it's going to get hotter and drier climate change, so there's less water.
Yes.
We have good access to water in Missoula, but just as the China example, just because we have good access to water doesn't mean we should consume more than we need. We should be conscious and use only as much as we need and try to allow it to our water source to keep going into the future.
At the end of summer, after all the snow has melted, some of our streams are dry. They have no water in them, and so it's only the rivers that flow steadily with water.
No, we're
Paper comes from trees, and trees are a good source to sequester carbon, to take carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, and they put it into carbon, that's paper. At the library, where you can print out paper, most paper is recycled content, and so when you recycle paper, then they turn it into new paper. You can also get a certification when you harvest wood, and so when you harvest wood, it's mostly legal. The certification provides it makes sure that the forest is not harmed when you harvest the wood. It makes sure that the forest grows better when you cut down a tree. And then you can, instead of someone sending you mail for your bill, you can just get it online, which is a new thing.
So as far as electricity goes, electricity use on campus, in an attempt to try to minimize the amount of electricity we use, a few buildings on campus, this is the Native American Center building. Actually, no, this is the Lumison Center building, which is where our cafeteria is. And then you can see back there, I think this is the Native American Center. I believe that also has solar panels along with our recreation center. So these solar panels take in light from the sun and transform that light into energy in lieu of using like coal-fired power plants to get our electricity, which emit fossil fuels into the air. A couple of buildings on campus are LEED certified. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy Efficiency Design, I believe. And so it's a certification program in the United States and I believe worldwide, which so there's like LEED certified, LEED silver, LEED gold, and LEED platinum. And the higher on the scale, the more efficient, energy efficient, and sustainable that building is. So by getting this certification, we can kind of say we have these certified buildings, we are a sustainable green campus. Tom mentioned the aquifer below Missoula. A few of the buildings on campus are cooled with the groundwater from this aquifer in lieu of air conditioning. So I can't touch too much on that, but I know that many of the buildings use the groundwater to cool down the building. And then our recreation center is a very, very sustainable building. We have a pool in there, and all the lights recently in the past 5 or 10 years were turned into LED lights, which use much less energy than the typical fluorescent light bulbs. Transportation I touched on earlier, but so ASBM Transportation does a lot. A bus system picks people up from around Missoula, which minimizes the amount of people driving to school in their own cars. We don't have motorbikes in Missoula, or really the United States. We use cars, which is actually quite worse. But bus systems allow people to all get on one bus, thus reducing the amount of fossil fuels emitted. Recently, we created this electric bus. So it's not gas, it's electric, fully electric, so it charges up for 3 minutes every time it does its route, and then it's completely electric, so there's no exhaust emitted from it, so it helps with the air quality. There's bike parking, covered bike parking, so in Montana it's a lot of rain, a lot of snow, which are bad for bikes. But recently we made a covered bike parking area to encourage people to ride their bikes in all seasons. There are plenty bike paths in and out of campus and around the Missoula city, which also encourage people to ride their bikes more rather than drive their cars.
Then we increased the price to park on campus. So we disincentivize people to drive their cars to campus by reducing the amount of spots on campus. This bus runs on electricity, but the electricity comes from coal power. And so it's the potential to eventually transition to solar power, and then you are not relying on gasoline to power the cars.
So for food, this is our cafeteria up here. You can see the guy playing the accordion. We have fun events. But actually, the food on campus our food center is very sustainable, and they do a lot to be more environmentally friendly. We have a farm to college program. Maybe Todd, you can touch a little bit on the farm to college program.
A little bit. 1,000 New Gardens, and there's a student-run farm up in one of the valleys. They harvest the food and they sell it to the campus, and so the campus eats local vegetables and meat sometimes.
So rather than buying our food from a big corporation like Cisco, the Farm to College program attempts to get a lot of our food from local farms within 100 miles of the university. We also have gardens on campus, and a lot of the greens and vegetables served in the Food Zoo cafeteria are from the campus gardens or campus gardens within a few miles of the university. The Real Food Challenge is a challenge. It's a program to, I'm going to skip over that one. We have a compost. There are a few farms in Missoula that do a lot of composting. So composting is food waste like banana peels or orange peels that you can turn, and over time it'll create like a fertilizer rather than a chemical fertilizer. So it'll help you put that fertilizer in the soil, and it'll help the plants grow better. And there are a lot of our food waste actually gets composted at farms around the zoo.
Alright, that's it. You guys have any questions about sustainability on campus? Yes, yeah.
I have a question, but it's more about the parking. If you increase the parking fee, do you get complaints from surrounding neighborhoods that have to deal with people not paying the parking fee, so they park their car 4 blocks away and walk to campus? Does that happen a lot?
There's a buffer zone around the campus.
But past that?
Past that, they don't say anything because there's also a high school right 4 blocks away. And they have driveways, they have cars.
That would be an interesting survey. I don't know if census like that has been done. But the buffer zone where you can park for campus is quite far. And a lot of people are pretty lazy, so they don't want to park far away and walk 5 blocks, so they'll end up just biking or taking the bus anyway.
You have built parking lots that you just park a mile away, like 3 kilometers away from campus, and the bus will pick you up and take you there every 15 minutes. So it's convenient to not drive.
I wonder, to ask the students from Kentucky University, do you have some similar programs and projects at your university here that are trying to make it more sustainable? I'm just asking the students from Kentucky University, because Casey and Tom showed you there are many projects going on at the University of Montana to try to make the campus more sustainable. And I'm wondering if you have some projects here at Kentucky University that are also trying to make the campus more sustainable.
Sustainable being using resources that you have access to in a way that allows them to continue replenishing themselves over time rather than overusing them and then running out.
So, ok. Mấy em thấy sao? Mấy em ở cái trường này, mấy em thấy trường mình có những cái hoạt động hay hành động gì mà để giảm thiểu ô nhiễm? I think a lot. They a lot, but maybe their neighbors or they don't want to talk. Just share your ideas.
One that I saw yesterday was the biogas that you have. You have a biogas thing.
And you see many students use bicycle.
Yeah, yes.
Me too, I do bicycle.
Yeah, kinds of certain
Because I don't have
ability.
You know, my university use a lot of garbage to not nothing.
Yeah.
Stress.
This true. Other people have ideas.
Maybe a cool idea would be put more trash cans around campus to help people throw away their plastic or other waste. I'm sure that that's already happening. But.
Yeah, I just remember about one of the projects that encouraged the people to use bicycles, but it seems that it's not impossible because they want to know about how it affects how positive reaction of using bicycle into our environment. So it's not impossible because the support the funder doesn't say any. They want to have evidence, clear evidence that using bicycle is safe or close to the environment. And I think it is a problem. It will be a we should think about that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, what?
We're almost afternoon. We're going to talk to you guys about the Berkeley Pit. The Berkeley Pit is this old mine. It exists here in a town called Butte, Montana. We're from Missoula, so it's about an hour's drive away from Missoula, Montana.
I grew up in Butte, so I know. I grew up here, go to school here, so we're talking about Butte.
Butte has a long history of mining of minerals like silver and copper. Butte is considered the richest hill on Earth, and it had a population of nearly 100,000 people at its peak in 1945. There were a lot of big names, big people that flocked to this part of our country to mine metals because they were going to make a lot of money. On December 5th, 1841, oh my gosh, I'm totally getting nervous, so excuse me. I gotta calm down. This is Marcus Daly. Marcus Daly is one of the Copper Kings. So the 3 Copper Kings that came There were 3 Copper Kings that came to Montana. He was Irish American. He purchased the Anaconda copper mine, which was near the Berkeley Pit. And he mined copper after the invention of the light bulb, which is a really good conductor of electricity. This is Marcus Daly's mansion, which actually my dad grew up nearby and was kind of a little bit of a troublemaker in his time, and he used to sneak into the mansion. He didn't do anything, but he just explored.
So I'll talk about Berkeley Pit in its early phases. It is an open pit mine. So a few slides back, there have been the gallows frames, which were used to dig deep into the ground. They would send miners down and go into tunnels and dig mines. But after a while, that became very expensive, so they started mining open pits like this. So the Berkeley Pit was dug down very, very deep, but it closed in 1982 because it was too expensive to run and because the walls were kind of caving in and it was kind of unstable. So they shut it down, and originally they had pumps that brought the water from the groundwater out of the mine, but they turned the pumps off, so it slowly began filling with water. So you can see from 1979 to, this is more what it looks like now, it's just filled with so much water. And when the water comes into the pit, it interacts with all the minerals that have been exposed, and so the water is highly contaminated. It's very dangerous.
Sometimes it even looks greeny.
Yeah, like in this picture. And so it was named a Superfund site. It's part of the Superfund complex, which is shown here. And I think we'll talk more about that later, so we'll kind of speed up.
Yeah, so because a lot of the environmental consequences, so it's here in Butte, but if the water level rises up, it can flow into the creeks, and then this Silverboat Creek is the headwaters for the main river that comes into our town, Missoula. So that's kind of what this photo is showing here. So when the pit closed in 1982, as Maggie said, the water pumps that pumped the groundwater that would naturally be in the pit, it pumped it out. And since the pit closure, the level has risen to within 100 feet of the natural groundwater level. That would, right now the pit is gaining, and if it goes above the acid water in the pit will go into the groundwater and contaminate a lot of our water in Montana. And that's why it's an environmental problem and can really contaminate a lot of the water sources in our area of Montana.
So you can see how deep it is, 542 meters. It's very large. They call it the largest contaminated body of water in North America. So it's very polluted, very large. These are all good.
Yeah, so the pit contains a lot of metals and minerals that have seeped into the water, including calcium, magnesium, potassium. It got an acidic pH close to that of a soda, or I think
close to 11. But it's still, if you were to get into the water, it would be very toxic.
Yeah, so the next slide shows, yes. Last 2 years ago, thousands of snow geese landed on the Berkeley pit because there was a big snowstorm and they needed somewhere to rest. And thousands of them died. And they described it as this lake just covered with dead birds. They don't actually have official numbers on how many birds died, but ranges are anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000. So many, many birds. It's a problem for the birds, but it's also a problem for the humans because we're around here, we're probably right here right now with the water level. And here's the critical water level where you can see all of these are tunnels. This is a crazy map. These are all the tunnels of the mines underneath you. And here's the Berkeley pit. And so right now the tunnels are filling with water and the pit is filling with water. And once it reaches a point, the pit is going to start filling into the stream and the groundwater. So what's being done? Do you guys want to talk a bit or do you want me to just
Move
along?
to the
Okay,
picture
cool.
now.
So there's two sources of water coming into the pit. There's streams and there's groundwater. And they built this treatment plant to stop the water from the streams from flowing into the pit. So it's slowing down, but they aren't really working on restoring it quite yet. They're working on mitigating it before it reaches the critical water level. So they're essentially building a plant that will start treating the water and cleaning it up, but it won't start doing that until 2023. And that's when it reaches the critical water level. So basically not much is being done about it. It could become a serious problem. Right now they're the technology review phase, so they're working on developing this plant. It's not in place yet, we only have 5 years. And this is, oh, you can't see, there's a little skier in the bottom. So, any questions?
This picture is meant to be a joke. Go back.
I was gonna do it so you guys could see. There you go.
That's the potential of what. Sorry.
So why would this Berkeley pit be of concern to we people who live in Missoula? Because we live 200 kilometers away.
So that's kind of why we put this diagram in here. So here's Butte and here's where all the contamination is. And as Maggie described, when it reaches the critical water level, the pit will go from gaining water to then putting its own water into the groundwater system. And that will contaminate Silver Bow Creek, and Silver Bow Creek is the headwaters to the Clark Fork River. And this orange river here, well, it's not really orange, but the contaminated water will go into there, and the river is a main source of fish and recreation here in Missoula, where we go to university. And a lot of other rivers, you can see here and here, things flow in and out of the Clark Fork. So once the Clark Fork is contaminated, it can have really serious impacts on our food, recreation, ecotourism in Montana, and it can contaminate our drinking water.
We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but it wouldn't be the first time that this river's been contaminated by mining from the pit and in Anaconda. We actually have a large restoration project that's happening that is scooping up the soils that have been poisoned by the mining process.
Yeah, there will be another group that talks more about some of the negative effects of mining.
The big concern for us is this big old mine is at the headwaters of our river that comes right through our city. And so if it contaminates that river, it contaminates our city and our drinking water. And always has. Questions?
Thank you.
How many presentations do we have?
So we have 3 left presentations. Yeah. One from the university and 2 from University of Montana. So who's next? What
The
presentation?
one from Kentucky University, we're going to do that at the farm?
No.
Here.
Audio Jungle.
To listen, but we tried 15 minutes. So we forgotten about Mekong issue. Yeah, we hope that, we hope that ASEAN community will create and we try, and we hope ASEAN community to solve the problem, not create more problems. Yeah.
My name is Andu, and I regard myself as one of the sons of the Mekong Delta. I am from Vietnam, and I first heard of ASEAN during my high school years. At that time, I did not really understand the purpose of ASEAN. Now, I am completing a bachelor's degree in agriculture and fisheries. I learned that fish are one of the main sources of food and income for many people living along the Mekong.
Audio Jungle.
I'm Savannah, and we're doing a presentation on the impacts of climate change on snowfall in Montana.
You can see Montana here is the outline, and then in Montana, most of our water comes from the inside the state. We get a little bit from states that border us and a little bit from Canada, but a lot comes from the mountainous areas over here. And it comes from snow and rain that falls high up in elevation. And while it's difficult to predict how precipitation will change with climate, there's an increasing trend in Montana that our snowpack, the amount of snow that accumulates during the winter time, is getting smaller with each year. And we are also seeing winters that are shorter with more intense snowstorms, snow that falls all at once, but in the end is less over the whole winter time. And this is an example in Glacier National Park in the northwest corner of Montana that shows a glacier back in 1913. And then this is how it looks more like today. Because there's less snow accumulating in the high mountains, there's not enough, and there's not enough cold during the winter time. More snow melts in the summertime, and that's making glaciers like this disappear.
And this is the picture of Montana and kind of like the main water systems. And you can see on the top is Glacier National Park, which is like has a lot of the snowpack. And a lot of the glaciers, that's why it's called Glacier National Park. And the funny thing is, there's Yellowstone National Park right there, but it's majority in Wyoming, but we feel like we claim it. Because I don't know why, but we do. And then there's a lot of changes in spring runoff because there's not enough snow in the mountains anymore. And so that means like less spring runoff and the rivers are drying up faster by the end of the summer. So some of the issues are like loss of the smaller rivers that are happening and then warming of waters. So the waters are getting a lot hotter for fish and other animals in the water. And then recreation. Recreation is really big in Montana. Because a lot of people come to Montana to go on the water, so you go water rafting, and then there's less groundwater available for everyone. And then that's a river that has dried up, and you can't see it, but it's a lot of people fish. It's a big thing in Montana. And then that's whitewater rafting. And so if there's less spring runoff and the water, the rivers are shrinking, that means we can no longer do this.
Another really big thing to consider is different wildlife and plant species in Montana. We care a lot about our natural environment. And with less snow, there are certain species that depend on the snow and the cold weather and the
the spring runoff, the water that flows through our rivers to survive. Examples of this are things like bull trouts, which is a native fish species in Montana, and it requires really, really cold waters that really only will continue to happen if we have lots of spring runoff and the rivers stay deeper and colder. Other things that happen are certain species will have to move up higher in elevation so that they can maintain the temperature that they can survive in. Things like that include pikas, which live at really high elevations, but there's a point where they can't move up any higher because they just don't have the space, and so we might lose species like that. And then the last one is some species require snow for different things. And an example of that is the wolverine, which is this species. It's a mesocarnivore that raises its young in the middle of winter, and the females require really deep snow so that they can dig dens to raise their young in. So if they don't have that, it might affect populations of those animals.
And then one of the main things that we're kind of talking about is like the economic impacts, because this will have a lot of impacts on like the money we make in our state, and a lot of it is reduced fishing season because a lot of people go to Montana to go fish, and that will cost $49 million in the U.S.
Surprisingly, less snowpack actually can affect hunting season as well. And Montana makes a lot of revenue from selling hunting permits to allow people to go hunting. And the reason that that's happening is because when in the summer it's staying hotter longer, the animals like deer and elk have to stay high up in the mountains in a high elevation, and hunters don't really either can't access them or don't want to like go through the trouble of getting way up there. So it reduces the hunting season, and that could cost up to $39 million, and that's like per year.
And then another thing is winter recreation. In the winter, there's actually a lot of people that ski and snowmobile like in the mountains, and they require a lot of snow. And so the reduced snowpack means that there'll be less snow available for the skiers and snowmobilers, and so like the skiers are going to have to start creating their own snow more than what normal, and that will cost $37 million.
And the last thing is national park visitation. As we mentioned earlier, we have 2 national parks, Glacier and Yellowstone, and both of those had taken visitors from all over the world, and part of that is because of their unique natural ecosystems, which can change a lot if snow is not happening, especially Glacier National Park, as we mentioned earlier, is losing its glaciers. They probably will be gone by around like 2030 or so. So that might reduce visitation and cause the state to lose a lot of money. And these are just a few of the economic impacts. There are a lot of other things too that involve failures in agriculture because there's not enough water to irrigate, loss, declining water to use for drinking water, and other human involved impacts as well.
Any questions? Any questions? Oh.
Do you know how much money Montana makes off of the snowpack?
The snowpack? Well, we got this source from an economist at the University of Montana, but he mainly focused on individual things and not necessarily the entire snowpack thing. But it was kind of a suggestion of like, this is what will happen if there's not that much like snowfall.
I guess I have a question more for students in Vietnam. Do they have similar like hunting practices in Vietnam where you could only hunt certain animals during certain times of the year, or is that not
You guys hunt?
So hunting of wild animals,
Huh?
legal hunting?
Actually, mình không đỡ đấy. We know hunting. But men có ẩm mà men có cái vụ mà săn á, có cho phép săn theo mùa hay là có biết gì
Không có cho phép
không cho luôn. Yeah. Share your idea.
I think that in Vietnam, especially in the computer or my country, hunting is illegal, especially for the special species is illegal. But in my hometown, sometimes I said that they take the run, but they produce themselves. But it's illegal. If the local government know, they will be punished about that. But sometimes I can see that some ones use something to catch a fish. Sometimes they catch a small fish. It's not good because it destroy the environment. Illegal. But in the condition there are no a lot of animals to go for hunting. But in the mountain a lot. But they hunt a lot, and now they know a lot of animals.
The foodness is not stronger. Yeah, it's not stronger than the benefit they have.
Actually, the law mentioned is illegal, but many people just do hunting.
Probably more similar is that you have a lot of fishing in the Mekong Delta, and we have a lot of fishing in Montana. But they put restrictions on it to make sure don't deplete them, don't turn them into endangered species. So you have to get a fishing license, and you restrictions on that to try to protect that. I think one of the things that's similar to what they're talking about with the snow issue is the same issue you're facing here with the upstream part of the Mekong, where this decreasing snow in China means there's less water going into the Mekong River. And Montana is what we call a headwaters state. The two of our biggest rivers start in Montana. The Columbia River, which goes to the Pacific Ocean, and the Missouri-Mississippi River, which goes to the Atlantic Ocean, both start in Montana. And so if our snow is decreasing, as Dominique and Savannah are talking about, it affects not just Montana, but all of the states downstream from us. Thanks very much.
Yeah, we learn a lot about water issue in climate change in Montana. And now our students will say about water resources, water management in Mekong Delta.
Today I want to introduce good and water in Mekong Delta. First, I want to explain that's why I choose water resources and youth for this topic, because we focus in agriculture to develop our economy, and 90% the amount of products is from foreign countries. So so the water resources is very important to us. So in the first part, I will introduce some problem of water resources in Mekong Delta, and in part 2, I will introduce some information about MUI and project of MUI to strengthen the youth ability to administrate the water resources. Yes. The first one is the conflicts of water use in agricultural production. in recent years, there's probably is a base of water use because farmers grow spring in rice fields, and is there may some conflicts of water use in salt water and fresh water. Because this situation is very hard to manage because I made some interview with farmer and they say this is the main finance and they made it to increase their income, so this is very hard to manage this problem. And the second is dye. So in recent years, there are many dyes built in the computer in so many places. And we have flood season and it's provides fisheries and alluvium to support our land, yes. And flood can wash field and provide alluvium for fields. But the dyes in many years prevent the flood into the field to wash the field. And in dry season, there's no too much water to go to the lower land, and some places people have to bore wells to have the water for using for agriculture and for their life activities. It's also causing a subsidence. It's even faster than the sea level rise. Yes. And next one is the problem of selling instruction in the computer into Southwest. In the computer, is especially in 2016, because in the early 6 months of 2016, the El Nino phenomenon in the dry season and combined with the water use in the upstream of Mekong deltas, causing hot, drought, and saline intrusion in Mekong delta. It's deep into the mainland, nearly 80 kilometers. Some places can do the agriculture because of this soil. Yes. And that's why we have to administrate water resources to make them better. So now Cộng Hòa will introduce some MUI activities to administrate the water resources to make them better.
And now I will talk about MUI. This is what of MUI. MUI is established in 1915, and I will talk about some information of MUI. MUI is part of Mekong Delta. MUI's activity are primarily focused on building youth capacity in the Mekong Delta. Everyone believes that all young people are full of energy and zeal to protect the Mekong Delta by acting against any developmental activity adversely affects the environment, and what always use new methods to integrate with the community. And mission of MUI, our mission is to connect the Mekong River with youth and bring more chance for youth to act and share ideas that support community. And vision of MUI is simple, purpose, and make a better with harmonious cooperation among which group. And this video clip make a better when it's established. Tiếp theo là những cái shot đất trong si.
This is with the light. This is the current.
Nó mắc cân cuộn cả nó
Makeup nail youth in 2015, and now we go 2016. 2016 is a year of Lotus. Do you know Lotus?
Yeah. Yes. Flower.
Project of Lotus for water resources administration. Because of this provide more skill and experience for on good and while launch a training score on field resource and basic collection skill, which will have from May 25 to 29. It consists of 3 days of training in relevant fields and 2 days for field participant to products field trip in the Gam Tha province and Sóc Trăng province. And why we choose Lotus? It's for three reasons. For reason, downtown province is the area of Mekong Delta. One of two catchment area of Delta. And the second reason is that the Lotus has the ability to pour a more amount of land water. So if people switch to dry cultivation, will really affect. And the final reason, when growing lotus can develop our cultural tourism. If people come in lotus and fish, tourists can visiting, eating, and resting here. And this is the picture about lotus and lotus. We know with lotus. This is so beautiful. And tea, rice, and some delicious food. I think it is delicious. It's a kind of fish, in red water. And now we go 2017 is year of climate change. And now the project capacity building for youth to respond to climate change was developed by all Phần Youth Fund and to improve knowledge on climate change, skill on relevant scientific research, especially in the field of climate change adaptations trends. The project including the following activities. First, online training on school kids for assessing vulnerability to climate change for youth. Organize on field trip for two young people in one district in Ghana City to collect field data, write a scientific to report based on a store data from community. And that's on the project of MDY about water resources administration and continue many projects. But it held 3 years for water resources administration, and MDY will be continue in the future. And MDY welcome everyone in Mekong Delta to join MDY to develop Mekong Delta. And thank you for your attention.
You talked about saline intrusion as a problem. How does that affect agricultural practices?
Yes, we can do agriculture because the soil is salinity. Yes, and we can use this soil to grow rice, and because we don't have the water to wash the salinity. Yes, and but we can use this this soil to do the agriculture, but a small farmers in Mekong Delta doesn't have too much finance to do that. Yes, but in the future, I think we have to change this. To change from right to stream to adapt with climate change.
What's your model for this year, for 2018? You have the lotus and then climate change. Do you have a plan for 2018?
I think MDY is up to about education for youth, with 1 year have project, and I think
Want to speak Vietnamese?
Yes. Yes, still not identify what we will do in the future, but we will identify some problem in 2018, and we will make projects, we make plans to do.
but I think everyone will be continue with climate change.
Is there a relationship between the Mekong Delta Youth and the Delta Youth Alliance here in Tanzania?
That's it. Collaborate.
Yeah, actually, that I mentioned earlier, people life and I work together to set up Delta Youth Alliance. After a few years, with the Alliance, some students, actually they more focus on water management, as I mentioned, water administration. Actually, another word, water governance. It's more political. And yeah, we asked, okay, we focus on this issue. That actually Delta Youth Alliance is the youth group which connect whole youth group in the Mekong Delta. Delta Youth Alliance, we focus on multi issues in Mekong Delta, not only just encounter specific province in the Mekong Delta. But about Mekong Delta youth, just focus on water issue. More specific, and that Delta Youth Alliance just we try to connect, we try to connect youth group to work together. For example, the jam trip. Sometimes we organize a field trip or also a seminar, and then we invite some students from other groups just come and share the work.
Thank you for everything.
Because mining and rivers are two very big things in Montana. So Montana has a mining legacy. We were the biggest producers for copper, and we also had some gold and silver. It's a sensitive issue politically and culturally because a lot of families in Montana made their money through mining. And so to say that mining is bad kind of sets off some people, but to talk about the effects of mining, you kind of have to. So when I give presentations in classrooms, I usually say that mining is not necessarily good or bad, it's a little bit of both, because it does give us a lot of money, it does provide resources that we need for our phones, computers, etc., but it also affects our environment big time. So as other groups were talking about earlier, they produce 22 billion pounds of copper, which we needed at the time for a lot of our energy systems, electricity and such. But now I'll talk about our rivers. So Montana is really known for rivers that are cold, clear, connected, and complex. And this is really vital to a lot of species in Montana, as well as just our resources. And so I'll talk about some species in the next slide that rely on cold, clear, clean, connected, and complex systems. And then a lot of our rivers meander. They have this sinuosity, so they're like this instead of straight. So these are some of our species in Montana, and they're also called bioindicators because they're sensitive species. So if
their water areas or habitats are polluted, then they start to die, and it's very clear that we have an issue. So bull trout is one of the biggest well-known species of Montana, and they particularly need cold water. They can't handle any sort of water that goes up a certain amount of degrees. And they also need connected rivers because they migrate up and down for mating and whatnot. And then they as well as these macroinvertebrates, these insects, rely on different areas of the river to live. So like pools are cool places where they can just hang out, and then the ripples add oxygen to the water, which they all need. So when mining affects that, these all start to die off. So the actual pollution that mining does, it's a disturbance, and it creates acid rock drainage, which is similar to what the Montana students have been learning about here with pyrite. It's the same in Montana. Pyrite is exposed through mining processes, which then create acid rock drainage. And I know that's an issue here as well in the Mekong. And so through the process of mining, you get ore and it's milled and processed, and those items are then crushed into fine sediments, and then you get tailings, which is another pollution factor, and it's just fine-grained waste and it's byproduct. And then the tailings also contain, like I said, silts, fine-grained, cadmium, arsenic, lead, copper, and zinc, which are all poisonous to us if we drink it, and to the fish and macroinvertebrates that I just talked about. And then smelting is the last step in the mining process, and you can see in the bottom picture there, it creates air pollution, which is why we might in Montana have to start wearing masks like you do if mining continues. And then more impacts. So when people try to mine sediment areas, it's very intensive, and they have to sort of move a lot of soil, and so some rivers end up becoming straight channels, and they lose their meander, which is an important habitat factor. And then the sediment gets moved around, and vegetation dies, and all of those sort of change the characteristics of rivers. And then, like I said, those heavy metals are a threat to fish and macroinvertebrates, and eventually, through the process of the water filtering down into our aquifers, like some other groups said, the metals will then also pollute our aquifer, which is what we rely on in Montana for drinking water, in Missoula especially. And so what's being done, we have both government agencies and non-government agencies working together in order to solve these problems. And they focus on remediation, which is taking out those pollutants and sort of disposing of them in a safer way. And then restoration, so replanting vegetation, adding more gravel, bigger boulders so that the fish come back and then the insects will come back. And then also educating and outreach. So we go to schools and we talk about this history and we explain what we need to do, and we recruit more people to join us. And that's it. Anyone have questions before we eat?
I do, but I'll wait till you're
I'm just wondering, how likely is it that a mine will contaminate a waterway?
How likely is it in general, or like Missoula?
In general.